Hey guys, welcome back to our Patreon channel. Thank you for joining us. This is White Metal Games, Episode 3, Part 2, Big Mek Deff Dread. In Part 2, we're going to be finishing up anything we left off in Part 1, and we're going to be adding the arms. So let's just jump right in. So where we left off was we had basically glued the model down or solidified it on its base to make it look like it was walking. Now you can see it's standing fully erect. The legs are in the good position, the feet are positioned well. So now I'm starting to think about engines. All Deff Dreads have an engine on them. Because this is a big Deff Dread, I think he needs a bigger engine. So I've grabbed a truck engine, a full-on boy truck, and I'm thinking about how to position it here. I'm dry fitting it to the back. I'm pretty sure I want it in the same place that the old engines would go. I wouldn't mind it being all the way up top, but the problem is, because it would look cool, but the problem is I know I'm going to put this custom force field generator up top, and the two of these would be vying for dominance on this model. You wouldn't be able to focus on one of them. So like all projects, I'm going to dry fit as many times as necessary until I'm starting to feel confident with it. And once I do feel confident with it, I'm just going to go ahead and cut. So I go ahead and grab my clippers, not my razor saw, to do the start of the work, just to get the big stuff out of the way. And then when the clippers are no longer opportune, I go ahead and grab my razor saw. Don't do what I'm doing, which is doing it in midair. Doing it on a surface would be better. Here I finally get smart and put it down on the wooden table. So I cut it down a little bit, and I'm dry fitting it back to the body, and I'm seeing that it's still not quite fitting right, but it's fitting pretty close. So I trim that down a little bit, and then I use a little super glue to mount this in place. Now, while plastic glue is great for welding, it's shitty for conversions because you're rarely putting things on exactly the way they're meant to go. Here, I'm adding a couple smokestacks to the engine. I'm trying to figure out the best place to put them. I end up kind of using this as a way to hide any of the cuts and damage from my last cut on the back of the engine block. So even though the smokestacks should probably be going the other way, this helps to hide any of the mistakes that I've made already. Not that there's mistakes, but just any of these awkward cuts I can hide with bits. So the stacks are basically going straight up, although they're slanted a little bit forward. All right, now we're going to jump into some of the fun stuff. So I'm going to start building some of the arms. The client has given me some free reign with this, so I'm going to build a couple close combat weapons. So to start, I grabbed this old dreadnought fist from a ironclad dreadnought, and I mount this Reaper, or this chain blade from a knight kit, actually, in between there. So I go ahead and put that in between the fingers, use a pin to mount an extra arm piece to that, and then mount that onto the body. I decide to make basically the biggest shooter you've ever seen. I use this from a variety of RoboGear parts. The barrel, I think, is actually from some sort of orc gun, like a big shooter, actually. And then the hand is what is left over from that hand from earlier, actually. It's from the lower Malerfiend foot. Here we kind of jump ahead quite a bit, actually. I think what happened is off camera, I was having trouble mounting some of these arms. So I kind of pulled off camera for a second to mount them. What's important to note here is that I used a spare grab and claw from a battle wagon. I used another dreadnought arm here on the other side with another spare hand left over from the Malerfiend. So nothing gets wasted. The custom force field generator, with the help of a pin, gets mounted to the top of the model. And with that in place, now I've got all of the basics done. So I grab a little green stuff. I'm using this to fill some of the major gaps. And then I'm going to hide that by making some of these hoses and wires. Then I'm going to use that basically to overlap some of these gaps to hide the smoothness of it. So essentially, stuffing the gaps is one thing, but unlike a traditional model where I could sculpt hair or muscle, this guy's all metal, so it's pretty hard to sculpt metal or flat planes. So I'd rather hide it with hosing. So I basically do this in two parts. I fill in the gaps with green stuff, and then I sculpt hoses to cover up anything. Likewise, I'm adding on small bits here and there. I've got a variety of spare pieces. And now I'm just either mounting them to the model itself to sort of hide or accentuate, or I'm just gluing down some spare bits. I call this detritus on our website under the basing page. And for detritus, we really just throw anything on the base we can: skulls, guns, weapons, bits of debris. So I blend in the resin sand, and when this fully dries, it's basically just going to look like ballast material. We'll paint it up to look like, basically earth has settled over this old junkyard. And that'll really blend out the base. As you can see here, it totally covers up any of the green stuff. So it adds height to the model without necessarily adding a lot of extra stuff. And that's basically about it. At this point, the model is roughly done. Obviously, we breezed through a few parts of this. There's lots of little details on this model that are easy to overlook. There's some knee pads from a knight kit and a Bulgurn kit that we used for the lower legs. There's tons of little pieces on this model. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you like this build. We will be doing more of these kind of orc projects in the future. We actually have a guest artist that's going to be starting to contribute to the channel very shortly, a huge orc enthusiast, and I can't wait to share some of his videos with you. Check out all of our kit bashes, conversions, cheat codes, where we share hobby tips with you. Put your minis where your mouth is. This is Caleb with White Metal Games.